Welcome to Channel AMEC, your insight to the Australian visa system. Good day everyone, my name is Carl Young, your online YouTube visa consultant. Are you interested about migrating to Australia? Why don't you consider to subscribe to my channel and turn on a little bell on the side, so once we have all the updates and news, you'll be the first one of getting all the insight. Now, very interesting, yesterday late afternoon, late evening, the state of Queensland has finally released its state nomination criteria for 2021 and 22. So almost about 4 months after the release of the new financial year, since 1st July, we're at the very last week of October, and Queensland has finally released its criteria. I think the delay was due to, obviously, pandemic, obviously, to the virus control and the border control. So on the same date, the state premier also announced the return of international students. So very exciting day and very busy. Now I would like to take you into a detail of what you can do if you wanted to migrate to Queensland by way of skilled migration. So in this video, we'll take a look at 3 parts. One is if you have studied and complete your study in Queensland, how do you actually achieve and migrate? And the other one is if you have obtained job and work in Queensland. And finally, small business owner, SBO, very favorable, hot topic as well. But we gotta make sure that you do your risk assessment when you invest into business, obviously due to a pandemic. Anyway, let's jump in there and have a look. So, very beautiful website. I think this is far the best website so far built by a state immigration department. So this is from Queensland. Apart from South Australia, still functionally seem to be South Australia still have the best search engine, but for the look and feel, I think Queensland had just won the best website design for if we are jumping into a competition for all the state design. So what we're gonna do is we will take a look at the skill program and the SBO in this video, and a separate video will be released very soon in regards to business program for Queensland as well. And there are a lot more other information. I think this website actually built very similar to the global talent independent website globalaustralia.gov.au. As you can see, they have some feature of the success story. You can actually click in there and have a look as well. Make sure you go in there and subscribe to the Queensland's upcoming news. And that's a very good function. So let's jump in there and have a look at the first one. Okay, so if you have graduated and obtained job and employment in Queensland, wherever you are, obviously you gotta be in those regions. So the Great Brisbane is not included, but the rest of it, so Logan, all the way to Gold Coast, Toowoomba, Sunshine Coast is all included. It's only the city of Brisbane who are not included, unfortunately. As you can see, the applicable regions starting from 4124, 4125, I think that's Park Ridge, and 4133, that's Waterford, and all the way for all the Logans and the Gold Coast region, and all west and north also as well. So let's have a read and go through this all together so you don't miss anything there. So the skill work live in Queensland, they feature 190 and 491. So 190 obviously, so we can see this visa an onshore skilled worker in Queensland. So it's for onshore skilled worker, but there's additional criteria as we will go to there. Generally, they want people with EOI 80 points or above, or in the Queensland PhD graduate who wish to live and work in Queensland permanently. And if you're not there, doesn't matter, you still got 491 to go. So this will be the rest of the people. They will get 5 years of work visa, and after 3 years of the annual wage of 53,900, you'll be able to transfer to 191 permanent residency. So you may undertake employment, work for one or more one or more employer with a part-time, two part-time jobs, or in your business operate there. So there's no requirement or condition that whatever the job that you require to do. So as long as you get nominated, you can actually do either of these three there. So we talked about the regions. So these are the postcodes. You can have a look. If you're currently if you're already a 491 visa holder, within 3 years you're not eligible to lodge 190. So make sure that's a condition embedded in the visa, just to let you know. So let's get into the meat. The eligibility criteria. To be eligible to Queensland nominate, you need to meet both Australian Department of Home Affairs criteria and the Migration Queensland criteria. That's pretty sure. So we've learned all about the Home Affairs criteria. So you got to be under 45, 65 points, skill assessment, and also English competent with IELTS 6 or equivalent. The proficiency test that you're going to take, so PTE, Cambridge, or TOEFL. Okay, Migration Queensland criteria. Now, if you want to go to, as I said, mentioned, you want to go on 190, you got to be 80 or above, or rest, you got to be at least 65 and 491. So please note that Migration Queensland will select highest point of each occupation. So that's, well, pretty sure, because every state will do that too. Now, the best thing about this is that there's no longer a specific occupation list for Queensland no more. So they basically refer to relevant eligible skill occupation in the legislative instrument 19/051. So what does that mean? If we click in there, I'm not going to go to there, but basically that link will get you to all the 200 plus occupations. So as long as you have an occupation listed there, 200, I mean, that's almost covering everybody, and you got a skill assessment, that's it, done. That's the deal. Okay, now the only hard part is that Queensland has raised its English proficiency requirement to IELTS 7, so you got to be at IELTS 7. So this will actually matches with Western Australia, and I don't think it's too much of ask. But let's see what happens, because at the moment South Australia still had the standard, the lowest standard of competent English will do, but a lot of the occupation required to have English proficiency to be up 7 anyhow. So if your logic expression of interest 4190, you need to provide full-time post-qualification employment, minimum of 35. That's a full-time job, 65 hours per week over the past 6 months in order to be selected, to be invited. Or other ways, 491, you only need to be had full-time for 3 months. Provide evidence of ongoing employment, and if you're with the Queensland employer that is registered in Queensland for the 12 months. So what that means is it's you need to find it. You cannot have an employer in Sydney and say, look, doesn't matter, you can work at home, okay, I'll pay you, and you stay in Gold Coast, for example. No, that's not gonna be done. The business has to be registered. They would search the ABN of the business, they will show up the registered office of that business. It has to be in Queensland, okay. And for further 12 months, that's the employment contract. Ongoing 491 must be ongoing in regional area. Commitment of living in Queensland for 2 years for 190 and 3 years for 491. Business office in Queensland, a virtual office will not be accepted. Okay, so no longer a virtual office will be accepted no more. So those business they set up in the share office environment probably will not be accepted as well. So further selection process, so these are the so-called quota specific occupation, high level occupation table below. So these ones are some of the occupations which is have quota in there. So finance, accountant, finance manager, and management consultant. If you can see that right on top of me, the limited quota is 50 each. So 50 accountant, 50 finance manager, 50 management accountant, so 150 altogether. And the engineer, so software, civil engineer, mechanical engineer, electrical, and electrical technology. Now, if the occupation is not listed here, means there is no limitation there, because these occupation listed in this table that we just talked about is there's just too many of them. Okay, so they're quota required, so 50 each. In the ICT, software engineer, development programmer, ICT business analysis, software application programmer, 50 each. Quantity surveyor, 30. Okay, only. Nurses, HK critical and emergency and NEC nurses, 50 each. And the trades, motor mechanic and cook, 30 each. Okay, so that's it. So caveat: selecting accountant must be working in an accounting firm, okay, and must be CPA or study towards become a CPA. So cannot just be a very generic accountant anymore. You gotta be, after you graduate, to get your PY, and you gotta go for CPA. If you're not CPA, I don't think there's any opportunity there for accountants in Queensland. And internal external auditor must have a job as an auditor, not an accountant. So you need to be an auditor. So they are taking into a specific point because they has in the past too many accounting graduates, and they probably only working as accounting clerks or bookkeepers. So they don't want these people anymore. Now, cook and chef, no takeaway, no fast food business. Labor hiring employments. If you're employed through labor hiring a company, make sure they are registered in Queensland. All labor hire provider operate must have a license under Labor Hire License Act 2017. So that's another thing that you require. Now the process, all you need to do, there's no ROI for Queensland. Okay, so all you need to do is, it has to be decision ready. You need to be ready before. So if we read here very carefully, you need to check all the document. It has to be all ready, so and meet all the criteria if you require occupation ready before you apply. For Queensland state nomination, you put an EOI in skill select system and you pick Queensland. Okay, and migration, Queensland assess all these EOI, and they'll invite you with the highest point selected in that occupation category. If you're successful, you receive invitation and request required. You must upload all digital through the portal and no longer accept document by email or post. So everything has to be done digitally. Now, the main thing here is I want to take you back here is that it has to be decision ready. So just the same as the GTI application, you cannot just bluntly go into a skill select and put in the EOI and choose Queensland and waiting for Queensland to invite you, and then you don't have those documents ready. For example, you haven't got your skill assessment ready, you haven't got your IELTS ready, you haven't got your work, payslip, superannuation evidence ready, and you got invited, then you'll be struck out. Okay, you'll be struck out. So everything need to be ready. Okay. So that's the most important thing. They don't like to take things and people go in there and say, look, just wait a second, let me get my this document or that document. Then you lose the opportunity. Okay, step 4, you receive invitation and you upload all the documents and pay the application fees, and you got to get this done in 14 days. And once that's all approved, you got 60 days to lodge your visa, and that's as simple as that. There's no ROI, there's no registration of interest for Queensland. Migration Queensland documentation, they're currently working in Queensland, and these are let me have a look. So familiarize with your application process, meet all the criteria, following documents. If you meet all the document criteria, is all done. Now here's a checklist. Okay, very important. Okay. Go in there and check all of this out. So the state nomination application form needs to be done. Settlement fund declaration needs to be signed. Bank statements showing that you've been receiving salary and wage for your employment. Skill assessment, onshore commitment statement template, employment contract. Again, you need to have this. If you don't have this, you'll be struck out. Okay, payslip, 3 payslip to show that you've been paid. So beginning, middle, and current. Okay. Evidence of license registration is required, for example, teachers or nurses. Statement of service employment reference showing that your work reference that from your employer. Prove your residency. So you need to show your lease agreement, bill, or bank statement, whatever, to show that your address is at the postcode that's being registered. So obviously they are checking whether or not you're living in Brisbane. If you're in Brisbane, they don't like you to be in Brisbane. They want you to be at Queensland, other places. Okay, evidence of your labor hiring company if they're applicable. PAYG income statement, ATO notification assessment, so showing that the tax has been paid. Extract of superannuation showing that your employment had contributed, and your passport. Now, last but not least, those state nomination application, settlement fund application form, and onshore commitment statement will be sent to you once you get invited, and you need to get those signed and done. Now, that's for if you have a job and work employment in Queensland. Now let's move into the graduate. Now graduate, it will be very similar, and I'll take a very timely introduction. Now obviously this is for people who have studied in Queensland. Now you cannot, not like South Australia, they only require you to study half of the course in South Australia, so they want you to transfer from other states. Now Queensland need you to study there 100%. So again, they are a couple ways for generally for people who graduate as a PhD. You have no problem of getting nominated by the state. So PhD is one way to go, but obviously it's very hard to get to that stage. So PhD, all occupation is in there. So again, legislative instrument 19/051. You need to finish 100% of the course in Queensland, okay, and graduate in the last 2 years. No job requirement for PhD, but if you only got master and graduate, you can only go through 491. Now, take a look at the requirements. Study in Queensland university institutions, complete 100%. GPA has to be 6.0 or higher. That's very high. That means you have never scored any subject or course less than 6. Because you got anything less than 6, you cannot get that higher. Okay. Have IELTS 7, so that's the same as for the skilled workers. Minimum 3 months work experience and 20 hours, so only part-time required, not a full-time. And you get a job offer for the next 12 months. Which is basically, if you're working there, all you need to do is get your boss to give you a job offer for the next 12 months. Again, labor hiring company. If you're working through a labor hiring company, make sure that labor hiring company has a license under Labor Hire Licensing Act 2017. Now the application process is the same as before, so another key thing here is it has to be decision ready. Everything needs to be in your hand. So once you get invited, you throw everything in digitally. No more post, no more email, and that's it. Okay, non-refundable fees, and then you get invited. 60 days, you need to lodge your visa. Okay, now the checklist is about the same. So the first 3 is the same as previously, or skill assessment the same as well. Onshore commitments the same. Proof of residency, statement of service, payslip, job offer, income again, ATO notification assessment, your superannuation being paid. Completion letter. So that's the new thing apart from the skilled worker, because you need to show that you have graduated within that 2 years, and you show your GPA. So pretty sure you need that. And if you graduate as a PhD, you need to show a thesis, graduate certificates, academic transcript. Again, that will coincide with the completion letter and your passport, and that's it. Okay, so that's for the graduate from Queensland. Make sure you study 100% in Queensland. So you love Queensland, go to Queensland, and make sure you choose a university or institution, not in Brisbane, Gold Coast perhaps, Sunshine Coast, Toowoomba, or Townsville or Cairns. Those one will be the most favorable to be accepted. Now, if you have studied in Brisbane, for example, University of Queensland, now obviously the 190 and 491, due to the region required, you will not be able to get this done, but there's 2 other ways. So let's jump into the SBO. Okay, the small business owner for regional Queensland. Now it's open up for all the occupation, but you need to get positive skill assessment, and you need to get IELTS 6. Okay, so that's the minimum requirement. And if you're buying business, again, there's a risk involved, so they always advise you need to seek further advice if you buy into or invest into business. Okay, so the 491 SBO obviously requires you must live and work. Okay, so that means you need to invest those business in those regions, so not in Brisbane. You can study in UQ, but you probably have a business in Gold Coast, and that would do. Okay, now if you have a profitable startup, profitable means no loss, and the last 2 years have operate with a turnover more than 200,000. Now there is no specific industry required, so as long as you meet that requirement, that's it. So it's promoting for the graduate to start their own business. But again, we are just possibly entering into a post-pandemic era. The risk involving investments and business is high, so make sure you really get some advice and detailed study on whatever you want to do in business sense. Okay, business purchase after 1st April 2021. The business has to be being operating for at least 2 years, and purchase price has to be above 100,000. And furthermore, commission agent, leasing agent, franchises are not considered, so you cannot buy those. You cannot buy McDonald's. No, that's a franchise. And the petrol station, things like that. Home-based business cannot be considered. Courier and cleaning business would not be considered. Business that have been purchased prior. Well, I don't think there's anyone will still be there anyway. Probably very limited. Now eligibility. Now home affairs 65 point again. Skill assessment 45 years of age under, and the English is required. Then the Queensland requirement is that any occupation, as long as you got skill assessment done, and you have operate business successfully 6 months. So even though you buy into an existing 2 years existing business, then you still need to operate 6 months in order to actually get into this nominations. 2 years for startup, and visa left for work, operate business, and then purchase existing business. Again, that's the 2 year thing, and the minimum 100,000. And you need to own 100%. Unlike the one in South Australia, you can have a partner. Now, so this is a little bit different, a little bit stricter than South Australia. And trading business is 6 months. That's repeat again. You need to employ at least one employee who's Australians and at least working part-time there. An Australian resident situation in perm resident or Australian citizen, New Zealand citizen, or special categories. That's 444 visa. That's a Kiwi if you want to do that. Again, the process is the same, a little bit different. You put in EOI, and then step 3 is you need to submit a 491 small business owner assessment form to Queensland, because obviously the skill select doesn't have the field to actually input what business, what sort of company or investment you had entered into. So you need to go in here, get that done, and then they will assess it, and then once it's done, they will ask you to pay again, the same thing, and then you lodge your visa. And the checklist about the same, but there's an additional to previous is the purchase contract of business. What else? Evidence of your ownership, so the ASIC or ABN and ASIC company statements, and evidence your employee, evidence you have lodged the tax for past 6 months. Vivo the applicant, so you're on the right. You're not a student visa. You're on the right full-time work visa. Lease agreement, if obviously a business need to lease or rent unless you own the actual place. Evidence you trade 2 years, stack deck, working hours, company statements, settlement statement, profit and loss. That's all the tax document and the passport. So that's it. That's all about the updates. I'll be very quick, but in the coming future, I'll be putting more videos in detail, spec and comparison of different states. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on the little bell on side. So once we have all the update, you'll get a first insight. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next video. Goodbye.